Hello, today we're going to look at creating our first multi-view application. So far everything we've done has just been a single view, but we're going to add another view and learn how to send that view some data from the first view. So to do this, we're going to start off just using a navigation controller. And the easiest way to turn this into a navigation controller view is to actually embed it in a navigation controller. So we go to editor and go to embed in, and we'll just say navigation controller. So now you see we have this bar, which is actually a navigation bar, and you'll see that in a lot of apps. And basically this, you can have a title, a back button, or other buttons that you decide to add to it, but for now we'll just give it a title. We'll call this first view, and we'll add another view, and to do that we'll just go to the view controller, drag it onto our storyboard, and then since we added another view controller, we should add another class. So we'll go down and go to this little plus button, and we'll add a new file. We want to add another Swift file, and we'll call this one second view controller. We'll rename this first one to first view controller. What we're going to want to do is basically just copy what's in this one into our second one and rename it. And rename this one. So we'll go back to our storyboard. And now we want to make sure that these are actually the correct subclasses of our two classes over here. And we do that by going to class, and we'll select first view controller for the first one and second view controller for the second view. So now we want to add a couple of things to our first view. Let's actually add a button. And this button we're going to use to get to our second view controller. So we'll just call this call it push view. And then we're gonna control drag, and we want to show. And show is actually gonna push this second view on top of our first view, and that made it part of our view controller. As you see, we now have the same navigation bar. Now to get a title, we actually have to add a navigation item. So scroll down, drag navigation item, and we'll just give this a title as second view. And I want to change the back button that's going to appear when this view is actually on top to just back. So right now, without having to actually code anything, we have navigation controller that will show this view first, and when you press this button, it will show this view, and there'll actually be a back button that will take you back to this view. But let's add a little bit more and actually send some data. So I'm just going to add a switch. Let's give it a label. Okay. So then we'll add another label on this side, and we're just gonna, we'll add two labels. So we'll call this one switch state. And then we'll add a label that's going to tell us what our state is. Currently it's on. So we'll just do that, center it. Alright, so we've done basically what we need to do. Well, actually we'll do one more thing. We want to label our segue that we created. And we'll just call this push. And let's add the constraints to these so that they'll look okay in our simulation. I'm actually going to change the color of these. Change the color of this one as well. Let's do that. Alright, so now we need to actually write a little bit of code to send the state of the switch to change this. So we'll pull up our code. So right now we're looking at the second view controller, so we want to drag this over there. We'll give it a name and say switch state. And we're actually going to create one more property. We're just going to call this data. And we're going to send a string, but we're going to make it an optional string just in case something doesn't work. And what we want to do is when our view loads, you want to load the data that we receive into our label if we receive the data. So we'll say if let label, so if let label equal data. And so basically what we want to do is if we do get the correct data, we're going to change our switch state dot text to equal whatever we get for data. Next, we need to look at our first view controller. And we need to add our switch so we can read what state it is. Let's call it mSwitch and connect it. We're going to call a method called prepare for segue. Oh, gotta spell it right. And then we're going to say, if we had multiple segues, we would want to know which segue was actually being called. So we would say if segue.identifier, which is the name we gave it, equals push, then we know that it should be the segue we just created right here. And so we want to read the switch, so we'll say var state string, and we'll say if mSwitch is on, then we want state to equal on, else state will equal off. The next thing we have to do is actually get a reference to our second view controller to actually access the property that we set, the property being data. And so to do this, we cast our segue, and we go to destination view controller, because that's where we want that's the view controller that is being called, and we're going to cast it as the second view controller. And now we have a reference to our second view controller, and we can access properties within it. So we say data, and we will send it state. So now it should be ready to go, and we'll see what we get. Okay, so we have our switch. Let's turn it off. Let's push the view on top, and we see that our state switch is off. Let's go back, turn it on. We should see on. So there you have it. We have a working multiple view application that's able to share data between different views, and now you can create bigger and better applications. So be sure to leave a comment with any questions and subscribe if you like what you see. Thanks for watching.